Aang's greatsword was just inches away from the douchebag's face, causing him to shake with fear. Aang was furious at him, telling him these words, "Don't you dare." The two other douchebags immediately drew their guns, asking Aang about what he was doing. They pointed their weapons at him, warning Aang that if he didn't drop his weapon, then they were going to shoot. Thank God the author drew Aang as white, or else the manhwa would have ended here. Aang tells them that their morals and actions were no different from those trashy hunting teams outside the city, so he decided to punish all of them properly. But a hand appears onto his sword, telling him enough. Paris had appeared with her hard-toned abs, telling the guards that this was all just a misunderstanding. She even introduced themselves as warriors from the A-rank city Pakadia that are here to participate in the demon hunting competition. Before asking the guards if they wanted to get into a conflict with the demon hunting competition participants from other cities. She then turns to Aang, telling him to sheath his weapon while not forgetting that he was a representative warrior of Pakadia City now. Aang thought about her words in silence for a few moments before deciding to follow her orders as he unsummons the greatsword. The guards on the other hand were whispering amongst themselves, about knowing that Paris and Aang were warriors participating in the competition. They decided they weren't worth the trouble of getting into conflict with warriors from other cities. Plus, they were afraid about what would happen if the law enforcement team leader learns about this, as they would get scolded as well. The lead douchebag was trying his best to hold in his anger after hearing his friends. He decided to follow their advice, telling Paris and Aang to return back to their hotels since they were participants in the demon hunting competition, but warns them to consider themselves lucky this time. And so the three douchebags finally left them alone. As soon as they left, Lena turns to Aang and asks him if he knew about her. Aang could only stare at her in silence, thinking that he almost told her that the strongest warrior has returned, but he was worried that saying such things without thinking them through will end up causing her more trouble instead. Paris then bumps Aang's shoulder, introducing him to Lena as Aang, the one with the same name as the strongest warrior. Her eyes immediately opened wide, as though hope had found its place once again in her life. As she looked at him, she called out the name, Aang. Our boy could only let out a deep sigh because of Paris's actions. He then introduces himself as just a guy who coincidentally had the same name as Aang. Lena was stunned to hear this and immediately pulls out her hood to cover her face. As she turns to leave them, she tells Aang that his name causes a lot of headaches. Paris was angry to hear that as she yelled at Lena for saying such things and even leaving them without a simple thank you to the guy who saved her. But Aang tells her to forget it and that they shouldn't disturb her. Looking at her leaving, Aang thought about how he was going to find a chance to explain things properly to her afterwards. Because he was sure that Lena also had a lot of things to say to him too. The next day, back in the Breaking Dawn City, the demon hunting competition parade commences, with red flags everywhere and the citizens of the city gathered in rows. A red flag was waving through the air with the name of Pakadia written on it. Paris was leading the city's warriors through the parade. The citizens spotted the new faces and even admired their handsome and good-looking faces. Paris tells Aang that once the competition ends, she was willing to personally vouch for him and recommend him so that he could talk with the person in charge of the energy crystals. Aang was glad to hear that she remembers their promise. He tells her to relax as he was sure to bring their team a good result in the competition. As they continue to walk through the parade, Paris warns him to not accidentally die in this competition, but just then, Aang notices something. He turned around to look at the crowd and spotted a familiar green hood. He could see that Lena had attended the parade and was watching them, so he smiled and waved at her. Seeing his actions, Lena immediately pulls down her hood to cover her eyes. We now turn to the Breaking Dawn City Forest Competitive Arena. It was a forest arena the size of a city that's used specifically for the demon hunting competition. A city within a city, such large designs are commonly seen throughout the Breaking Dawn City. The Pakadia group were seen gathered in front of Paris, who tells them that since she wasn't a participant in the competition, this was where she was sending them off. She even tells them that after they enter this place, they will have to rely on their own abilities. With a mighty slam of the flagpole, she proudly shouts out, "For Pakadia glory and honor, warriors, please bravely kill all demons." The troops shouted back in response, "For the city's glory, we will not fail in our mission." Aang was smiling nervously, thinking that he should have shouted together with the team. But then an announcement is heard, calling for all teams from various cities to please enter the arena, and for every team's Vanguard member to gather in front of the judges' area. Hearing the announcement and looking at it, Aang knew that the competition had begun. As he entered the forest arena, he could see that everything was lively, even though it had only been 10 years and yet, the demon hunting competition he created had turned into a competition with rules and regulations already. He even remembered that it was just a merely small competition within his city that year, which gave him a strange feeling. The announcement announced to the crowd that the team from Pakadia City was entering the arena and highlighted to them that they were known for boldly utilizing external aid for their team's Vanguard member. The crowd was excited to see them as they knew that the A-rank city has the same kind of architecture and walls as their city. Upon entering the arena, the 4 members of the team turned around to call out to Aang. They bowed their heads towards him, for their everlasting friendship. One of the members was all teary-eyed, telling Aang that they were relying on him to gather all information for this mission and that they were going to remember his sacrifice. The other members started to crowd around Aang, offering to shake hands one last time, but Aang assured them that he was going to do his best and that he wasn't even dead yet. Aang knew why they were acting this way, as being a Vanguard member was extremely dangerous, so they were acting as though they were sending him off to his death. After all, being selected to be the Vanguard member is a role that has a slim chance of survival for them. He could see it on the other Vanguard members' faces. All their downcast faces were pitiful. All the Vanguard members had been gathered, wearing green cloaks in front of the announcer lady wearing a bunny outfit. Wow, this author has some unique taste. The bunny lady announces that every team's Vanguard member has prepared themselves, and to start off, she wanted to first salute them with the greatest honor that they can have, since their mission was filled with unknown dangers. And the fact that they were all taking up the mantle for this dangerous role shows how truly admirable and courageous they are. Whoa, she's a 5-core warrior. The bunny lady announces to everyone that their mission is to enter the depths of the competition arena and collect all kinds of information and clues about the demons for their teams. Upon hearing the mission details, the crowd started to cheer on the Vanguard members. But the bunny lady reminded them to be careful and to take note of their own safety, because what's waiting ahead of them were demons with unknown levels. As Aang stood amongst the other Vanguard members, he realized that all the warriors currently participating in the competition were just double-core warriors, and figured that this demon hunting competition was just a method for them to select warriors with good potential. To select the best warriors from the newer generations amongst all the cities. Naturally, they wouldn't allow warriors with a higher level to participate. Then a smile came across his face as he figured that Paris knew that his strength was definitely higher than that of a double-core warrior, which was great for Aang. Because as long as he doesn't speak about it, no one else will suspect his true strength. But before the competition starts, the bunny lady wants everyone to welcome someone with their greatest cheer and applause that they can possibly give, because for this competition, that someone will be judging the competition as the highest-ranked judge, as he is someone from one of the 6 greatest warriors. Aang's eyes instantly open wide upon hearing her announcement. He turns around to look at the entrance, anticipating the arrival of one of the 6 greatest warriors. The bunny lady announces him as humanity's strongest regeneration and support soldier, so welcome him. The moment he showed himself, the crowd went wild and crazy, excited to see his handsome face with the fact that he was also a double-core warrior. This is one of the greatest new 6 talents, a double septuple core warrior, Dylan Fan. With green hair and a single monocle on his face, and 2 cores on his suit, this is Dylan Fan. The energy of the crowd went up immensely the moment Dylan made his appearance. The crowd's energy could be felt and seen from outside the forest arena. They continued to chant the words, "The 6 new heroes, Lord Dylan," repeatedly as Dylan enters the arena. He looks all around and waves at the crowd as they continue to chant his name. Aang was staring at his chest. He couldn't believe that the idea of a dual core, that was still in its theoretical stages in his previous life, is now able to be utilized. A dual core indicates twice the strength, but if the synchronization rate is high enough, it can even end up showing an incomprehensible amount of strength. A warrior's ability stems from the energy provided by the demonic core. The higher the synchronization rate a warrior has with their core, the more they can utilize the power hidden deep within the demonic core. But the higher the synchronization rate, the more the warrior's body will have to tolerate the demonic energy's attack. It's just like a power suppressing the other. That's why warriors with low synchronization rates or even weak bodies can still match with some of the cores. In Aang's previous life, humanity's technology could only invent equipment that could utilize a single core in the grafting equipment. But it looks like in this life, the 6 new talents don't just have a double-core grafting equipment, they were also much stronger as Dylan's aura radiated strongly around him as he made his way into the arena. All the Vanguard warriors, and even the bunny lady who thanks Dylan for taking the time to view their competition despite being busy, immediately bowed their heads towards him in a 90-degree angle, the ultimate sign of respect. All except for Aang, who was surprised by their actions. The reason he didn't bow to Dylan was because thinking of what happened to the older six talents makes him angry with Dylan. Dylan started to praise the Vanguard warriors, calling them amazing for being here despite knowing the dangers of their positions, and yet they still had the courage to do it. In order to reward their bravery, Dylan was personally going to give everyone here a triple-finned core as a souvenir after the competition in hopes that they return back safely. The Vanguard members immediately shouted thank you at Dylan's generosity. Another member turns to Aang, whispering to him about why he was being disrespectful and that he should bow his head quickly. Whoa, flexing his hard-toned abs and body, Aang explains to everyone that he couldn't bow because his waist hurts. Causing an awkward silence between him and Dylan, who continues to just stare at Aang in silence before giving him a lovely wink that came with stars. Aang sees this right away, and immediately felt weird about it, thinking that Dialn was so disgusting for smiling so flirtatiously at him. The bunny lady announces to everyone that there was going to be a feast for their eyes as the great warrior Dylan Fan, one of the great warriors of the new six talents, will be showing them a performance of how he kills a quadruple-finned demon. Using that, she wishes for their demon hunting competition to be held perfectly. And so, the demonstration was about to begin, drawing the crowd's attention as they cheered even louder. The bunny lady invites all the Vanguard members to take a look from the sidelines as well and to leave the stage to Lord Dylan. Aang looks back at Dylan, thinking about the performance of killing a quadruple-finned monster. He believes that the new six talents were trying to showcase their strength and capability with such a method. He also knew that it wasn't easy to capture live and securely imprison a quadruple-finned demon, which meant that the overall battle strength of the Breaking Dawn city is truly greater than before. As Dylan approached the bunny lady, he had a single question for her, asking her if she was a new referee instructor. The bunny lady excitedly replied back that she was and that it was an honor for her to meet him. Dylan then leans in real close to her, which startles the bunny lady as she didn't know what he was doing. Play the Homelander music. As Dylan whispers into her ear that they were going to have someone replace her later, he reminded her in a cold way that they were the only six talents, and yet, she kept going on about the new six talents, which pisses off Dylan as he hated hearing the words new. He continues to threaten the bunny lady, telling her that if she wasn't a warrior from the Breaking Dawn city, then he would have accidentally shattered all her internal organs with a single palm. While the bunny lady was feeling scared for her life, the crowd was still in love with Dylan, thinking that he was gentle for bowing his head towards her. Dylan then tells her to get lost, and so, the bunny lady leaves in a hurry. Aang on the other hand could feel that something was wrong as he watched Dylan silently. One of the green cores on Dylan's robes started to glow before forming a type of microphone headset on his head. He announces to the crowd that as a representative of the six talents, he was going to show everyone a hunting demonstration with the quadruple-finned demon that he brought along, in order to wish for their demon hunting competition to be held happily. And to also give these brave Vanguard member warriors a good start, the crowd continues to cheer Dylan on while Aang remains silent. Soon enough, the ground they were on soon to show signs of being opened. A massive metallic cage was sent flying upwards. Dylan stood in front of it by himself, telling the others to open it. As a horrifying quadruple-finned demon emerges from the cage, Dylan explains to the audience that in order to capture the quadruple-finned demon in this box, they had to send out a total of 3 quadruple-finned warriors, a proof of the demon's terrifying strength. Dylan proudly announces to everyone that this quadruple-finned monster that is rare and one of the most brutal, is the strong yet fierce red core gold elements quadruple-finned demon. As the demon emerges from its cage, it tells everyone that it was a mistake to not kill it and to release it out in an open-air battlefield like this, with so many people watching. Which isn't something clever to do. The moment the demon stepped out from the cage, its legs started to expand. It shouts out that the warriors were stupid and instantly leaps past Dylan, going straight into the crowd. The crowd were shocked and scared at the sudden appearance of the demon in front of them. Some even tried to run. But then the demon wasn't even able to come close to them, as it realizes that there was a purple protective shield protecting the crowd. Soon enough, a green rope was wrapped around its body, without the demon even noticing it. It came from Dylan, who pulls the demon right back into the arena easily. He tells the demon if it understands that the warriors aren't the ones that were stupid. He reveals to the demon that there was an entire purple shield surrounding the arena that is quite sturdy. He explains that this protective shield was made by one of the 6 talents, the one called the strongest illusionist type warrior, and was cast by them. A little girl was amazed by it, telling her brother to look as there seems to be a shield that they couldn't see, but her brother was amazed by the demon, even calling it fun. Dylan started to move on to the next part of the demonstration. Walking towards the demon, he tells it to die while unleashing the deadliest demonic aura in the form of a green skull towards the demon, who is trembling in fear before him.
Thanks for watching the latest part from the voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more.